Okay, we can start. So the sheet in front of you. So this is the whole Maimer so far, is to explain the difference between Seif Maaseh Machshava Tchila and the other principle that's usually said, equated. Usually, the other principle is that, the other principle, you can look in there, look in the Maimer, Nos Tchilasan B'Seifan, V'Seifan B'Tchilasan. In translation, the first one. Seif Maaseh Machshava Tchila, the final act, is conventionally translated is the uppermost thought. But he's teaching it here, the diuk is not uppermost thought. It's uppermost that precedes thought. And the question is, how could there possibly be? Everything begins with a conscious desire for the project, whatever it is that one embarks upon, that's completed with the final act. How could it possibly reach a place that's higher than the first thought? Now, the first thought or impulse, nos tchilosan b'seifon v'seifon b'tchilosan, that we understand. Beginning is wedged in the end, and the edge is wedged in the beginning, which means that the deepest, the final act is expressive of the first primal, deepest motive that began this whole project. And the example he's giving here in the Maimer right-hand column is the act of giving a poor person sustenance. There's 7 stages. Let's look at them. And the first and the last are connected. I could have written the top of the page here. I'll add that. This illustrates, this whole page illustrates the principle of not Seif Maaseh Machshava Tchila, but rather this is illustrative of Nos Tchilosan B'Seifon, V'Seifon B'Tchilosan. The beginning is wedged in the end. In other words, the first thought is wedged at the end. What do you want? You want the end result, and the end is wedged in the beginning. It completes and finally gives expression to the first impulse. So the 7 stages are, we're talking about someone who does an act of chesed. He is giving money to a particular poor person. It's negir that's a particular poor person. It's a bit of a different model, which is giving charity in general. That's not the case here at all. Here the case is Aleph. He is walking down the street and he sees a poor person. So this arouses within him a simple, pure compassion. And I stress the word within, he is touched. It's not anything yet. What do I do about it? It's not about that person yet. It's about him being stirred. He's a Jew. As we explained yesterday, the Jews naturally are compassionate. What are the other 2 properties? That is, we're talking Achmanim. That's Baishanim, which means shy. Not really shy. It's used that. It's Baishanim. It uses that. It's used in being shy, and I guess it's an expression of it. But Baishanim, every Jew is shy, that you know.
Embarrassed,
easily embarrassed by sin. They feel guilty quickly. Natural guilt. I mean, you see this. Jews are driven by guilt. Not just things happens to them. Things are wrong in the world. Jews feel guilty, and the world says you're guilty. Quite right, we are. We're the center of it all. What's the third thing? Gemli Chasadim, and naturally disposed towards, it isn't a big deal to give. It's natural. So much so the Gemara says, if you see a Jew that doesn't display these natural traits, one can be concerned for their ancestry, if they're actually Jewish or not. So one of them is Rachmim. So again, aroused with a simple, pure compassion within, he is touched. And this, the words of the Maimer, that becomes the tam of Einig, that is the fuel. In other words, the reason and the essential. Einig is, remember, again, Einig is always something essential. Einig is about the person, not the other. So this is the fuel for what's going to happen next, because again, he is stirred. And therefore that gives rise to the next stage. Beis, rotzen lehetiv la'ani zeh. So he wants to help this person. So now already he's moving away from the essential self, and the process begins. It's going to end up very quickly in helping the other. So you can hear the beginning of the shit would help. This was really critical. So it'll be taped and posted. Then 3, machshava. There's 2 machshava. Find the other machshava on the chart. That's where he makes the association, or he makes the reference to Tanya. Machshava appears twice in this process. In this Gimel we're up to, and also in in Hay, but he's thinking in both Gimel and Hay. They're not the same. They're not the same machshava. In fact, it appears from the association he's making with Tanya that actual articulated letters of thought and words don't appear in Gimel, only in Hay. So we could add, as we're talking, I can add something to this machshava Gimel. It's more, a key word would be here, awareness. Awareness of his desire. So I write the word entertains because I wanted to keep it still, not articulated yet in terms of, what to do. Certainly not. The reason I say awareness, because the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, and you can see where Gimel matches up with Hay, Gimel is articulated thought. Just jumping ahead at Hay, considers what to do, thinks it through. That's Hay, not Gimel. And he says in Tanya, this is where the Oisius, so the whole beat in Tanya is a different context, absolutely, entirely. Well, not absolutely, also this is connected. But anyway, that point in Tanya is to say that the letters of machshava only born in Gimel for Tanya, because it skips many of these stages and it's a different scenario, and Hay in our case. So it's not Oisius machshava in Gimel. He thinks about, entertains this desire. It almost transcends language. But what's the word? He is what I used before, better word. Not aware, not entertain.
Awareness.
I said awareness? Okay. Okay, that's helpful. So this is awareness of his desire. Now his will is also awareness. If we can appreciate the subtlety of the difference.
That's an emotional awareness.
That's not emotional, but it's a more instinctual, like I got to do something, but it doesn't think these words are got to do something. In Beis, there's not, I've got to do something. It's just the netiyah of the nefesh. He is now drawn towards helping this person. So the pure desire to help the person. And Gimel is he's thinking about this desire. He's aware of it. He's entertaining it. It dwells. He doesn't dismiss it. Because of the time, because of the midas harachmim is aroused, so it's driving all of this. Certainly the will. So it's not dismissed. That's Gimel. Then the heart is moved. Now, is there not an emotion going on till now? And we said yesterday, Rachamim, for goodness sakes, an emotion. And Aleph is an emotion, but it's not. It's not the standard emotion where the heart is stirred and the person becomes animated and excited. There's no excited as in animated. The Rachamim Pshutim in Etzem HaNefesh, as we said, starting off with the Shir, is integral to the Jew's identity, even the Nefesh Abamis. Now in Dalet, it's the hardest story. It becomes animated. Now we've got to do something about this. Chesed, so Rachamim, is really now felt in the heart, and it's directed to this individual. This is the key here, is that his base, which sets us apart from other kinds of emotions that he speaks in Tanya Perechov, as we explained. So now continuing, hey, the fifth stage, now he considers what to do. He thinks it through. This is real oises and machshava. And what am I going to do about this? And then dibur, not always is there vav, not always. You can skip dibur, as we've learned, but often there's instructions that need to be done. If the help has to be given to this person and it's elaborate needs, then it's going to involve other people as well. So he's going to talk about it and give instructions.
Could the dibur here also be a construct of words based on hey, now he has not doesn't mean he's articulating the words, but he has oisis even to himself.
Yeah, but that's already in hey, really. But dibur also, mind you, could be, can add this, the talk to the oni. When he gives it to him, he does it also with words of compassion. Could be, it could be, because the Maimon will speak about that. The faisai, to appease the poor, is even greater in some measure than actually helping them. And then Maisa B'Poyel, the final act, he gives the dollar or whatever, or it could be a very elaborate act, gets a person a job, whatever the case may be. So these are the 7 stages. It just incidentally, because this morning someone sent me something and I responded, I'll share it, because it's important. The Israeli government's great failure, amongst its many, in the current crisis is the failure to appease, the failure to talk to the hostages and the families constantly. A hostage comes, they don't even call. And therefore we're seeing these shameful protests. Stop, end it, negotiate. So sacrifice all these soldiers, meaningless. You know, or you don't know, there's going to be future attacks if they're not destroyed. It's all cast aside. I want my child back, which we understand. But if there would be, then, you know, the faisai, and there'd be constant communication with them, and they would share with them whatever they're able to do, whatever they're doing, and explain, we wouldn't be seeing this. It's just shocking, frankly, that there's such lack of awareness. That's an aside, and if this goes out and reaches their ears, they'll be good. They'll do something about it. Okay. Now, Tanya Perechov, he made it's number 3. That's what the reference, the Maimon made the reference to this. Oh, did we do hey? We did, yeah. So now he's thinking, it goes back, it went to the heart. The heart's now animated. So now he's going to, what kicks in after the animation of the heart, that he wants to do something, and it's now a really emotion that's got the himself moved. So now goes back to the mind, and that is to think about what to do. In Tanya, it's a different model. Tanya, we're not talking, let's start from the top. There's 3 steps, he says in Tanya. It's a different model. We're not talking about seeing a poor person and being aroused with our instinctual compassion. The case here is a desirable object or subject to learn, he says. So it all starts with just you're aware of it. Seichel. 3 simple stages. And then the heart desires, I want to get that food. He gives a mashal of food. Or I want to master that subject, thinks about it. And then that's the desire in the heart. I want to learn this. I want to eat this. And then it goes, and that's when Isis Machshava Abon. Again, the context there is to explain the bittul of creation, like Rabbi the Eibishter's Dibur, which is the context in those prokim in Tanya. I'm just bringing it here that it's really Gimel that he just mentioned here, not in passing, but in identifying here the 7 stages. Stage 5 here is stage 3 in Tanya. We're clear? Yeah? Okay. Let's continue then.
Why is this not said Maseh Machshavah Tchila? You started with. Said this is not Tchila.
No, it's not, because
So why? How come it's not?
because even this is not Tchilas and B'Seifim B'Tchilas. The beginning is like the Etzem HaNefesh, the Etzem HaRachmim. But Machshavah Tchila, he says, even precedes that. Be'em is asking a good question. One level higher than Machshavah is Ratzon, is base. But the Maimon teaches Machshavah Tchila as preceding the whole process. Because of course of even the Rachamim is aroused. Where's that felt? It's all in consciousness. It's not classic Machshavah. But where's awareness? I think, therefore I am. Everything happens here. We don't call it Machshavah. So that too is Seif Ma'aseh Machshavah Tchila, even that Machshavah. Not the classic Machshavah, but at the end of the day it is. Everything's felt there. It's not Oisius and Machshavah, it's not Gimel, it's not Hey, but it's still in the mind. That's the answer to your question. That's what you're asking, right? Yeah. Okay, so with Ois Gimel, which is what we just now, the first part of it just mapped out. So let's now continue in the Maimer. V'zehu, so we're up to V'zehu. It's 2 lines from the end of the line. 10 lines from the bottom. Everybody has it? Yes? So here, in this case, we just mapped out. So this is the end, is wedged in the beginning. Seif Maseh, the end, the final act of helping this person, this particular Oni, it's already there in potential. It all begins with the first arousal, with the simple compassion for the poor person. But as we pointed out there, even though the first stage is within the self, it's only second stage. I got the will to help this person. His compassion, his natural compassion, is aroused. There, the intent is he should be in a state of aroused compassion. No, the end. It's all about the end result. To give the good and kindness, the kindness and the good to this person. Now, in parenthesis, kind of, but we'll also explain the dibur, and it's why I spoke about what I spoke about. And even though the Gemara says, the person gives a coin to a poor person, he is blessed with 6 praises and blessings brought there in the pasuk. But to appease him, in other words, it's usually translated as pious. Maybe even a better word. To offer him solace and comfort. Mizbarach b'yud aleph. The Gemara brings another pasuk until him of 11 praises. They have hence brachas for the one. No, it's not until him. For the one who doesn't give, but that's what it seems like. He's not giving anything. He's just empathizing with him. So l'chayre, that's not Seif Maseh. That's dibur only, right? That's not Seif Maseh. He didn't do anything. And yet, so how could he get greater brachas? We're saying that the ultimate is the final act. So he says, what's the pshat in the Gemara there? This I have to learn it. The Gemara's intent is not that words of comfort and of empathy to the poor person is more important than giving the actual dollar. So what's the Gemara mean? That which the Gemara says, if he appeases him, he's blessed with 11. That's when the appeasement comes together with, and that could be the dibur that we're talking about, with the actual giving. In addition to what actually giving the person, the chesed He's revealing, what is the piyus? This is interesting. In his words of comfort, he's also expressing all the drives that started this whole process, which is empathy. Rachmim is empathy, friends. That's what true Rachmim is. That's why it's deeper than Chesed. Even though the order of Shtalshalus Hamidus Chesed precedes, but Rachmim is in the center, touches the essence. Because it's empathy. Rachmim is the ability to be touched by something else. So in his words, he's expressing the deeper levels, the will, the good that's in his heart. All the way that he's revealing his delight and pleasure. This is all coming through in not just what he says, friends, but primarily the way he says it. And everything is carried through in those words. How the mind was engaged in this and the heart was stirred. He gives it with joy and with goodness of heart. The only doesn't feel that he's getting it begrudgingly, discharging an obligation, but he feels the way the person is giving it because he wants to. So then he feels good about receiving it. This also gives the piyus, the appeasement. It seems here the gam also is, aside from saying words like, of compassion about the person's state, but when he feels that you're giving it from your heart and your will and your desire and you really want to, that too contributes to his appeasement, to his feeling good about receiving it. You really want to help me. Wow. In simple language, somebody actually cares. And not just cares enough to give me $1, but cares enough to be emotionally involved and affected by me. Loneliness is perhaps the greatest pain. And here it's not feeling lonely, that someone is empathizing and feeling and connecting. So that's all conveyed in the piyus, the words. That's what the Gemara means. So it's interesting that it's 6 versus 11. 11 is already 11 means beyond the 10, touches the essence. If you're giving and you're revealing your heart and you're giving in your rotz and your taineg, the relative essence, because we're going to go deeper. Say Maas Machshav Ha'tchila is deeper than all of this. First, we need to appreciate this model. So beautiful words here, words to take home. That when you give in a way that reveals your rotzen and the toiv shebeliboy, you're lifting up the oni. You're lifting your spirits. Feels like a mensch, not just a stray animal. Did you throw a bone to? Give her the smile. I have a debate. You're on the street in the car, and people always. So I give. Giving money, they drugs. So not everything is drugs. Something they buy, food also. So that's your problem. Have in mind that this money is designated for the person's food. But give her the smile. That they wish to put such a person in front. They see that you're a visible Jew. Number 2 is Kiddush Hashem. They always have a few coins to give, and with a blessing, God bless you. With a smile, God bless you. You see how their face lights up, they give you a bracha back. Aval kol ze dafke. So when does all this happen? Kasha yeshna hashbos hachesed b'pil mamish. What's the kol ze? Yeah, the piyus, the mila of the piyus, the mila of the appeasement, and its virtue that the person is blessed with 11 brachas. It's only that was explaining the Gemara when that's in addition to actually giving the help. So all of this so this is illustrative of Beginning is wedged in the end. The beginning awakening of the Midas HaRachamim. Yeshna kvar hakavona, there, the intent there is. There's an intent already there. Shehi asayf ma'aseh dafke. There should, in the end, that's a big chiddush. Shaila is, why, I have to think about this. Why can't there be these, he's moved compassionately, but not doing anything about it? The answer is because that's not compassion. As I said before, true rachamim midas hatiferes. You tell me, friends, what is the metaphor? Kind of a metaphor. Not a metaphor, but wrong word. What's a physical illustration of midas harachmim, the Mishkan? We're talking about the Mishkan, and we're talking now in Hilchos Beis HaBchira. We're learning Hilchos Beis HaBchira. What in the Mishkan is expressive of midas hatiferes, the mid of Yaakov? Yeah, the middle shaft that connected all of the boards, because that's midas hatiferes. Midas harachmim is empathy that connects me to somebody else, no matter how low. So, but true rachamim, the kavanah is midas hatiferes, mavrich min hakotze lakotze. It penetrates every level. From one min hakotze, the kvetch is min hakotze lakotze, from one extreme to the other. I never says this, but maybe that's why it's always associated with tiferes, with harmony. Harmony means at least two things that are connecting harmoniously. That's rachamim, you and the other person. With chesed is not rachamim. Midas chesed is a midah that's exclusively the kind of person, what type of person? A kind person. Rachamim, by definition, is only aroused by somebody else. You're a Baal Chesed, even if there's no one to give this Chesed in your heart. You're just a kind person. But you're not going to find Rachamim there. It's too essential. That's a manefesh. Rachamim is aroused even at this core level one, only when it's somebody else. That's when it's stirred. You don't need Chesed to be expressive in the person. It's just kind in his whole behavior, even when there's nobody else. But Rachamim is a response to somebody else's need. Chesed is not. Chesed is a nice person. Chesed will be employed by Rachamim. Let's continue. So this is all this illustration is the way it is for us. Now to apply it above, no, the first of l'mayda l'mata. This is still the illustration. We just finished saying the final act is expressive of the original rachamim. It's about this person being helped. So the final act gives expression to that. And likewise, top down from the very beginning, that the beginning is wedged in the end. When we think about the end, the good that was done, propel mamish to this person, as a royim bezes tchilos. Let's contrast the two. The first thing he said before was, he made the point, the beginning of this is Oiris HaRachamim, there already is the Seif Maaseh. The Kavan is the Seif Maaseh. Now he's saying the other way. When it's finally done, we see where it all came from. As a roim bezet chilosan haynish sibes amshoch bepoil. Where does this all come from? This act of chesed Because he was aroused essentially the midas harachamim, and therefore the pleasure. Nothing is done at the end of the day if it's not speaks to the person in the deepest way. That's what tainug is. That's what caused all of this. And if at some point it gets distracted and the will is not, it's interrupted, it would never end up in an action. So we see in the final act, we see that it's all drawing on the original impulse and all the stages identified. Moreover, the way it's going to be in the end. How far are you going to extend yourself? How involved are you getting? That all depends on how deep the rotzen is, how deep the will was. That's interesting. It doesn't take us back to the etzem b'das harachamim. Because that is a more atmistic thing. It's not quantifiable. Whereas we start to get how much, it's the rotzen, it's the will. So the rotzen, how much am I opening to my midas harachamim? That's going to depend. That's going to determine how involved I'm going to be.
It would depend on how much of the desire there is by the.
That's what I'm saying. The midas harachamim is an inyan atzmi, so it's not quantifiable. It's not quantifiable. The will, what am I going to do with that? That's hardwired. He is be'etzem a bal rachme, and that's stirred. Now the next thing is this is your will. Like, how much do you want to embrace that? That's somewhat of a decision already. That's not essential. It's l'chayre. The midas harachamim you have no choice of. You're a yid and you see something like this, midas harachamim is aroused. Now it could just be that you can be ignored there. There's no will, there's lack of will to act upon. You squash it. Move on. I have no time. I have other responsibilities. Whatever it is. So the rotzen is the first stage where there's a kind of a bechira. So depending on how much the rotzen is, that's going to depend how engaged we are. That's why he stops there. But the Seiris of Mitzvah Achim has no choice of. He's a yid. Not stirred. The Mitzvah Achim isn't stirred. You see, you get in the COL. You know, these tzedakah cases. Yesterday, a child that has this rare disease that gets old. She gets, I think it's a girl. The child doesn't have old already, can see already. Everybody watched that. There was a tug in the heart. Then the child is the rotzen. No, because they should do something. Or next, click on the next thing. Tsk and move on. I'll tell you a funny story. We'll stop here. There was somebody many years ago, before any of you were involved in the old MTC. So there's a person of questionably Jewish or not. It's a Jewish name, a complicated case. So one day, this fellow used to come to MTC Montreal to collect money. He hasn't come in years. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, he has a child. He's an American, made Aliyah, Bakshuva, lives in in the Shtochim, I forgot where, should remember. Upon him, a terrible disease, this child that spontaneously produced veins. Just produced veins in the body. So the Israeli system couldn't, only in America. No, they could, but the insurers didn't pay for it. So he used to come every year and raise money. So I remember that he came and he spoke at the Kiddush. And he was describing, so everybody, stopped eating, just spontaneous. See, there's one guy still eating. He's just shoveling it in. He said, no. This kid can't be Jewish. Taka turns out, after investigation, despite all of he wasn't. So we're all stirred that way. For the second, we put the fork down. But in the rotzen, that's the shine. Okay, friends, to be continued by tomorrow.